You open your investing app on a Sunday morning and look at a number that took you 11 years to build. It's the same thing you've done 100 times before. Same app, same coffee, same quiet arithmetic. Except something invisible happened last month, and the app didn't tell you. For the first time in your life, your money earned more than you saved. $1 million invested at the long-run average of the stock market throws off roughly $70,000 a year without anyone getting out of bed. The median American working a full-time job earns a little over $60,000. So here's the question this whole video exists to answer. Why does the first million take a decade of grinding, while the second one shows up almost casually? Because it does. And the reason isn't luck, and it isn't a secret investment. It's a shape. Let's put real numbers on it, because vague encouragement helps nobody. Say you invest $2,000 a month into a plain, broad index fund earning about 7% a year after inflation, roughly what the U.S. stock market has averaged over the long run, though never smoothly and never on schedule. Your first $100,000 arrives in about 3 years and 10 months. Your first million arrives in just under 20 years. Now watch what happens next. Your second million takes 8 years. The third takes about 5. The fourth takes under 4. Same monthly deposit, same fund, same person. 20 years for the first, then 8, then 5, then 4. That's not motivation. That's arithmetic. And the arithmetic has a reason. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's business partner for over 4 decades, was asked about this at a shareholder meeting and gave one of the least polished answers in the history of finance. He said the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you have to do it. He told people he didn't care what they had to do. Walk everywhere, use coupons, whatever it took. Just get their hands on that first $100,000. That's a strange thing for a billionaire to fixate on. $100,000 is a rounding error to Munger. So why did he single it out? Because he understood something about engines. There are only 3 engines that can build wealth: your income, your returns, and time. In the beginning, you are the only one working. Think about your first year of investing. You put in $24,000. At 7%, your money contributes about $800. You are doing 97% of the labor. Your portfolio is a passenger. This is the phase nobody makes videos about because there is nothing to show. You are hauling the entire vehicle by hand, and the machine you're building doesn't help you at all yet. But somewhere along the way, a specific and almost magical thing happens. At $2,000 a month, when your portfolio reaches roughly $340,000, the returns on your money start matching everything you save in a year. Your invested money has quietly become your equal. In the book Your Money or Your Life, Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez gave this moment a name. They called it the crossover point. It's the moment the passenger takes the wheel. And once that happens, the whole problem changes character. You are no longer building wealth. You are supervising it. There's a second thing that arrives around the same time, and it has nothing to do with the market. Your own earning power peaks late. Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows American earnings typically top out in the mid-40s to mid-50s, not in your 20s. So the years when compounding finally starts pulling hard tend to be the same years your salary is highest. 2 curves that were both flat for a decade start rising together. That's why the second million shows up with help. The first one had to be dragged. Now here's the second reason the first million is so much heavier. And it's about percentages, not dollars. Going from $0 to $100,000 is not a percentage gain at all. There is no percentage that starts from nothing. Every single dollar has to be dragged in from outside, out of your salary, past your rent, past your friends' birthdays, past the version of you that wanted a nicer car. But going from 1 million to 2 million, That's a single doubling. And doubling is what compound growth does naturally. There's an old shortcut called the rule of 72. Divide 72 by your annual return, and you get roughly the number of years it takes your money to double. At 7%, that's about 10 years, with no additional deposits at all. Read that again. $1 million left completely alone becomes $2 million in about a decade. Your first million required 20 years and every dollar you could scrape together. Your second million requires you to not sell. The task didn't get easier because you got smarter. It got easier because the units changed. In phase 1, you're buying dollars with effort. In phase 2, you're buying dollars with patience. Which brings us to the part of this that genuinely surprised me, and it's the one that explains why so few people ever finish phase 1. The first million isn't hard because of the money. It's hard because it's invisible. Go back to our numbers, 20 years to $1 million. But look at where the growth actually lives. In the first 10 years, your portfolio reaches about $346,000, and most of that is simply your own deposits handed back to you. The market has added relatively little. Then look at years 21 through 30. In that single decade, your portfolio grows by about $1.4 million, more than everything the first 20 years produced combined. The reward for the hardest work arrives last, which means for the entire first decade, you are being asked to keep going while the evidence that it's working has not shown up yet. Almost every human system in your body is built to reject that deal. Think about what year 3 actually feels like. You've put in $72,000 of real money, money that could have been a car, a wedding, a year of rent in a nicer place. Your account says maybe $80,000. 3 years of restraint bought you $8,000 of growth. Nothing in that experience tells you that you're building something that will one day earn more than you do. And this is precisely where most people leave. The research firm Dalbar has spent years comparing what funds returned to what investors in those funds actually earned, and the investor number is consistently lower. The methodology gets argued about, but the direction of the finding never changes. People buy after things go up and sell after things go down, and that gap is where their wealth quietly leaks out. Nobody loses their first million to a market crash. They lose it to an interruption. Consider the most famous investor alive. Morgan Housel, in The Psychology of Money, points out something about Warren Buffett that almost nobody notices. Buffett is a brilliant investor, but he's a wealthy man mostly because of duration. The overwhelming majority of his fortune was earned after his 50th birthday. He was already a very good investor at 30. He just hadn't been one for long enough yet. His secret isn't a stock. It's the fact that he never interrupted the compounding. And that's the exact thing the first million tests. Not your intelligence, your ability to leave something alone while nothing appears to be happening. Now the twist inside the twist. Because there's a cruel inversion here. The math gets easier as you climb. The emotions get harder. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky proved something in the 1970s that has held up for 50 years. We don't experience gains and losses symmetrically. Losing something hurts roughly twice as much as gaining the same thing feels good. They called it loss aversion, and it's the reason a bad day in the market ruins your week while a good one barely registers. Now apply it. When you have $40,000 invested and the market drops 20%, you lose $8,000. That stings. When you have $2 million invested and the market drops 20%, you lose $400,000, more than your first million took a decade to build. So the person with the harder arithmetic has the easier feelings, and the person with the easier arithmetic has to survive far larger emotional shocks. That's the trade nobody warns you about. The first million tests your discipline. Every million after it tests your nerve. And there's one more force working quietly against you the entire time, and it isn't the market. It's your own lifestyle. Thomas Stanley and William Danko spent years surveying American millionaires for their book, The Millionaire Next Door, and their central finding was almost anticlimactic. Most of them weren't inheritors or celebrities. They were first-generation wealthy people in ordinary houses driving unremarkable cars, whose defining habit was that their spending never scaled as fast as their income. The most extreme illustration of this is a real man named Ronald Read, who worked as a gas station attendant and then a janitor in Vermont. He wore a coat held together with safety pins. When he died in 2014, he left behind a portfolio worth around $8 million, built from decades of buying solid, dividend-paying stocks and simply never selling them. He never had a high income. He had a low burn rate and 40 years of not interrupting. Because that's what the first million really costs. Not brilliance. A long stretch of ordinary months where you keep depositing into something that hasn't yet proven itself, while everyone around you upgrades their life on schedule. So turn this around and look at your own position, because there's a genuinely useful reframe hiding in all of it. If the first 100,000 takes nearly 4 years out of a 20-year climb, then the earliest 10th of the goal is eating almost a 5th of the time. That's not failure. That's the design. Which means the number you should be obsessing over isn't $1 million, it's the crossover point. The day your returns start pulling the same weight as your salary. That's the real finish line of the hard phase, and it arrives at roughly a third of the money, not at the end of it. And it means the two things that decide whether you ever get there are unglamorous to the point of being boring. How much of every raise you let reach your lifestyle, and whether you can leave the account alone through a decade that gives you almost no feedback. Nobody is coming to make that part exciting. It just quietly ends one Sunday without any notification. And notice what that means about the story you've been told. The internet sells the millionaire moment, the screenshot, the 7 figures, the announcement. But the real milestone happened years earlier and looked like nothing at all. It was a month where the market handed you $2,000 while you were at work, and you didn't even open the app. That's the day the first million became inevitable instead of hopeful. Nobody celebrates it, because nobody can see it. You open your investing app on a Sunday morning and look at a number that took you 11 years to build. The number isn't the achievement. The achievement is that you're no longer the one carrying it, and from here, the thing you built starts building itself.